Hi everyone, today we're talking about grooming. So we all know that we groom our horse before we ride in order to clean them so that we can get any dust, dirt, or shavings that could possibly end up under your saddle and irritate your horse's back. But there's also a lot of other good that grooming does. Grooming is a really good bonding time for you and your horse. So when you spend time grooming your horse, it helps improve your relationship and helps them understand you as, a friend and someone that they can trust. So in the wild, horses actually will groom each other and they'll nibble on each other's withers with their teeth. And it's a way for them to show affection and to show that they care about the other horse. And so basically from like an evolutionary standpoint, grooming is a good way for you and your horse to develop a better relationship. So first, I actually like to start with my horse's feet. Most people start with the curry comb, but I like to start with her feet because then any topical that I put on her feet has time to dry while I'm grooming the rest of her body. So I'm going to go ahead and start by picking her feet out, and this time of year, because it's wet, I like to use Venice turpentine on her feet, which helps keep them dried out and helps toughen the soles and keep them strong. So when we pick out the horse's feet, we do this because rocks and dirt can get built up underneath their shoe, underneath a pad, or even if your horse is barefoot, they can get rocks lodged in their frog and in the grooves. And so we have to pick these out because if you were to ride your horse with something stuck in their foot, they could end up getting a stone bruise or some type of sore on their frog or in their sole. So when we go to pick our horse's feet out, we start by taking our hand that's closest to the horse, and we want to stand facing towards their back end. So you don't want to stand like this facing their face. You want to stand like this with your face facing their hind end. And then you take your hand that's closest to the horse and you run it down the back of their leg like this, and then they pick it up. And then you want to hold their foot from their hoof, not from their ankle. So some people have a tendency to want to hold their foot right here, but you have a better, more firm grasp when you actually hold the hoof itself. So you can see that Val actually wears some pads. These are frog support pads, and she has shoes, okay? So like I said, I'm gonna start with some turpentine right now, but you wanna pick out around the frog. So remember, the triangle part in the hoof is called the frog, and then the grooves on either side are where you need to clean the dirt out of. So this foot's actually pretty clean. And so after we finish cleaning it, we're gonna go ahead and get some turpentine and then thoroughly coat the exposed hoof. And again, this just helps to harden their soles and dry them out when we've had a lot of wet weather. And Val has a tendency to have fairly soft soles, and so turpentine has really been a lifesaver for her. So now we've finished the sole, so I'm gonna go ahead and let her put her hoof down, and then I'm gonna roll her bell boot up, and I'm gonna make sure the outside of her hoof is brushed off so that I'm not putting any product on just dirt. So now I'm gonna get a little bit more turpentine and go ahead and coat from the midsection down to her toe. And you wanna try to avoid getting the white line because you don't wanna harden that out. And then I like to leave her bell boot up like this so that her hoof can dry without getting her bell boot sticky. So I just wanted to make a point on safety. Whenever you're grooming a horse, no matter how much you trust them or how much you've worked with them, you want to try to avoid ever putting your knees on the ground. So you'll notice that when I'm doing her feet, I always keep both feet on the ground and no knees. So even when I squat down to do her bell boot or do the bottom of her foot, I do not go like this and put my knees on the ground. And the reason for that is because you never know what's going to happen, right? Something could spook your horse, they could become alarmed, and they could jump. And if your horse goes to jump and they jump towards you, you're much, much quicker at reacting when you're on your feet. You can pop up and step away. If I'm sitting here on my knees and something over there spooks her and she goes to jump on me, it's gonna take me a lot longer to get off my knees and on my feet and then away to the side. So whenever you're grooming, no matter how comfortable you are with your horse, you always wanna make sure that you do not put your knees on the ground. And so after I've done my horse's feet, I like to go ahead and start with the grooming of their body. And we're in the springtime here, and so she's still shedding a little bit, even though her coat still looks pretty slick and clean. So I like to do the first step of my grooming with a grooming block, and I like to use the it's called a Slick and Easy block, and it's made of charcoal, I think, and it is great for pulling hair and excess dirt off your horse. Riley, will you hand me the grooming block? Thank you. So this is what the remnants of mine looks like. They start off a little bit bigger, but as you use them, they get smaller over time. And so what I like to use this for, you use it in the same strokes that you would a hard brush or a soft brush. And so you follow the direction of the hair, and you can see that it makes a little bit of a sound, and it just pushes down against their hair. And you can push down pretty firmly. They seem to like it. And basically it pulls off a lot of excess hair and dirt, and it does it just a little bit better for shedding than a curry comb. So I actually use both my curry comb and my grooming block. And you can see now, I'll go ahead and do right here so you can see it all, but there's a lot of hair that's starting to come off of her and pile up on her coat. So this is a great tool for shedding and for the springtime, and especially if your horse has a little bit of extra dirt caked on, I find that this is really helpful for knocking that off before you start with your brushes. So after I finish my grooming block, I like to go ahead and start with the curry comb. So the curry comb is great for shedding the horse. It pulls off any excess hair. It also helps to curry the dirt from the skin up to the surface of the coat so that it can then be wiped away by a hard brush or a soft brush. And another great aspect of currying is that it stimulates blood flow to your horse's skin surface. And this is what helps your horse produce a really nice, shiny, healthy looking coat. So I know a lot of people who have started skipping their curry comb, and they're like, my horse isn't that dirty, I'm just gonna go ahead and go to my hard brush. But one of the things that they're missing when they're doing that is this really great stimulation of blood flow that, again, makes your horse's coat shinier and healthier. Riley, the curry comb. So this is my favorite curry comb, and it's one of the rubber ones that's pretty flexible, so you can see you can bend it, and it has two sides. This side has a little bit larger nodules for grooming, and this side has smaller, a little bit softer nodules. And I like to use both sides. I like to use the softer, smaller side on their legs and the larger, harder side on the rest of their body. And so the curry comb is used in circular motions with a good bit of elbow grease. So you don't want to just lightly, barely touch your horse and go around in circles like this. You want to actually put some effort into it and push down, again, because as you're pressing and currying, this is what's stimulating blood flow to the surface of their skin to help their coat be shiny. So you see, I like to start up here at the ears, and this is Val's favorite thing. And sometimes, like I talked earlier about grooming and how horses groom each other in the wild, and sometimes if you groom your horse in just the right spot where they really like it, they'll actually start grooming you back. So you can see now a lot of hair that's coming up to the surface of her coat, and you can even see where a lot of dirt is also coming. So you can do this, and that's good. That means you're doing a good job currying. So again, you never want to use the really hard part of your curry comb on their legs, because their legs are more sensitive. There's less muscle and tissue there. So you're mostly skin on bone. So you don't want to use the rough part of your curry comb because it can hurt them. And so I switched to the softer side of my curry comb for her legs. And I'm giving them a good hard brush too. But with that being said, you also don't want to not curry their legs. I know some people who get a little bit lazy and like to stop currying right here, but you still want to curry their legs to help shed them out and get that heavier dirt off. Okay, pause. About the curry comb is that it allows you, when you're brushing your horse every day, to really get a feel for your horse's quirks and idiosyncrasies. And so basically, when you're looking that hard at your horse every day, you understand the shape of their legs, you remember the shape of their legs, you know the shape of their feet, you know the temperature of their feet when you go to pick them up. And so if something is ever wrong or something's starting to go wrong, when you spend time grooming your horse, it's a good opportunity for you to realize when something is not well before it really gets bad. So I can tell you, as I was just grooming her, you can actually see that her back is a little bit sore right here. You can see her kind of sucking away from the curry comb. Okay, so that tells me, she did work extra hard yesterday, so maybe that's why. But also that could be sort of the beginning of a saddle fit issue. And so it just allows you to keep an eye on these things. Another good example is that she has some puffiness down here in her fetlock area on this leg, and that's normal. She always has that and it's always there. But if she had it on one of her other legs, or if it felt hot, then I would know that something might be wrong with her. And so this is another good opportunity in grooming. It's just for you to know your horse, to spend time with your horse, and then that gives you the opportunity to recognize if something is not right. Okay, so I finished currying, and you can see, you might have to zoom in, but you can see that up here there's a lot of loose hairs and dirt that I have now brushed to the surface. And so the next step is to brush all of those off the surface of the coat. So what I'm actually going to start with is something called a tendon brush. And this is made by Haas. And I actually really like this brush because you can see that it has two different levels of bristles. One set is longer than the other set. And this brush is actually designed for their lower legs. So you know how all of the bones and tendons in their lower legs create sort of an uneven surface for brushing. And so the double layer of bristles on this brush is really convenient for brushing their lower legs. So I like to use this after my curry comb, and all I do is her lower legs with it. And you can see how it really gets into the grooves there, helping to really wipe away the dirt and hair that we've brought to the surface using the curry comb. Okay, so now that I've finished with the tendon brush and I've brushed her lower legs and really gotten all those grooves, I'm going to go ahead and use my basic hard brush. So the hard brush is used, it's the first step in wiping away the dirt, grime, and loose hair that we brought to the surface with the curry comb. So the way you know that it's a hard brush, it's usually pretty large in shape, and it has harder bristles. So when you compare your hard brush, say, to your soft brush, if you feel the bristles, you can probably even see that this one has pretty hard bristles, and this one has really soft bristles. And so the reason that we use the hard brush first is to get sort of the heavier, grimier dirt off. And so we use the hard brush in a sweeping motion, following the direction that the hair grows. So we're going to start up here by her ears again, and follow the direction of her hair. And you can see the dirt and the hair that I'm brushing off her body. And you can see how her coat is starting to look cleaner and sleeker in the areas that I've already hit with the hard brush. And then I like to just go ahead and go back over her legs, even though I already did those with the tendon brush. So the next step after the hard brush is our soft brush. And I'd like to point out that a tendon brush is absolutely not necessary. If we're talking about basics, it goes curry comb, hard brush, soft brush, hoof pick, mane and tail brush. So really we have 5 basic brushes that you need for your everyday grooming. I just really like that tendon brush, especially for when it's muddy around here. It really helps to knock off that heavy dirt. But anyways, so we're moving on to our soft brush now. And the soft brush, like I said, has finer bristles. It's a little bit softer, but they're also placed more densely together. And so what this does is this gets off all of the tiny remaining light dirt, any hairs that you may have missed with your hard brush, and it also helps bring a shine to the top of their coat. And a lot of people don't realize that that's one of the functions of the soft brush. So basically, as you brush them, because these bristles are so fine and dense, it sort of reaches down to the skin and pulls the oils of the skin up to the top of the coat. And that's what really gives your horse that shine when you're done brushing. And so I'm going to go ahead and use this, and you use it in long sweeping strokes the same way you did your hard brush, following the path of the hair.